Shalom guys, welcome back to another episode here at Yeshavio Ministries with Casa de Israel. Yarah, we're back to another episode. So, this week's Torah portion is Naso. So, let's get started. So, this week's Torah portion starts in Numbers 4:21 to 7:89. And so we are picking up where we left off last week. There was a census, 20 years or older from each tribe, the leader, right? They chose a leader from each tribe, 20 years or older, to serve as, you can say military, to lead the camp. And so we saw from each camp, they were chosen a leader. There was a census and they gave a total. And so we understood that in the book of Exodus, they were redeemed. They were given a name. They became a nation. Elohim gave them the commandments. He gave them the blueprints of the tabernacle. The people of Israel were called to be priests, kings, and princes, but they sinned with the golden calf. The Levites stayed faithful to God, and they are chosen to be the ones servicing the kingdom. Elohim gives them the blueprint of the tabernacle. The tabernacle is established, and then we have a pause. Leviticus comes in and he tells us how he wants to be approached, where he presents us sacrifices, offerings, sin offerings, well-being offerings, complete gratitude burnt offerings. We see how we atone the sins of the community. We atone the sins for ourselves. We see how the priests are supposed to carry themselves, how they dress, how they look, what they represent, right? And now we're going to see how the nation and the camp is going to move towards the promised land in the desert. Okay, so we saw a census last week. This week, we see another census of the Levitical priesthood. We see that they are counted. They do a census for them. As last week's Torah portion closes out, we see the Kehathite. They're given the instruction of what they were going to do, and they were in charge of basically, as the tabernacle is being dismantled to be transported, the priest will cover everything or everything that was sacred. Where was the lamps? Where was the table of showbread? Where was the ark? Where was the incense? Right, the table of incense. All of these things that are holy and sacred, they were being covered by the priest, and then the Kehathites were not able to look at these things. They were the one that will carry these items as we march in the wilderness. This week's Torah portion starts with the Tribe of Gershon, where they are giving the instruction of what they're going to be doing, and they are counted and the leaders are established. Now, interestingly, we see that the Kehathites and the Gershonites, they are being directed by the priests. Remember, the Kehathites had a service and the Gershonites had a service. The Merari had a service, but the priests, the high priest, Aaron and his sons, were the ones that were going to monitor and make sure that all these sacred items and these in the tabernacle were being transported correctly, and that they, right, last week's Torah portion states that the Kehathites were called to be protected by the priests so they wouldn't die entering the holy place or the Holy of Holies to take the items without them being covered, because they were not allowed to see these things. So we are starting to see Elohim establishing boundaries of holiness and how he wants his camp to move. Okay, so the book of Numbers starts with a lot of organization, order. Right, we're starting to see the mentality of God. Like, God wants an orderly kingdom based on his command. Remember, everything that starts off in all majority of the Torah portion says Elohim says to Moses, or Elohim speaks to Moses, saying, tell the people of Israel, or tell the priests. So when you read the Torah portions, you have to understand, or when you read the Bible itself, mainly the Torah, where God says, I tell Moses this to tell the people, is God speaking. Okay, so the Haftarah portion for this week is Judges chapter 13 verse 2 to verse 25, and the New Testament, or the Brit Chadashah portion, is John 12 verse 20 to 36. So let's get to the reading. Kedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor atso et rosh bene net shon Gam Chem Lebet Abotam Lemoshehotam. Okay, in English it says the following: And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take a census of the sons of Gershon, also by their father's household, by their families from 30 years and upward to 50 years and old. You shall number them, all who enter to perform the services, to do the work in the tent of meeting. This is the service of the families of the Gershonites in serving and carrying. They shall carry the curtains of the tabernacle and the tent of meeting with its covering, the covering porpoise skin that is on top of it, and the screen for the doorway of the tent of meeting, and the hangings of the court, and the screen from the doorway of the gate of the court, which is around the tabernacle, and the altar, and the cords, and all the equipment for their service, and all that is to be done, they shall perform. All the service of the sons of the Gershonites in all their loads and in all their work shall be performed at the command of Aaron and his sons, and you shall assign them as duty all their loads. This is the service of the families of the sons of the Gershonites in the tent of meeting, and their duty shall be under direction of Itamar, son of Aaron. Okay, so here we're seeing how the Gershonites were to carry the poles, the coverings, the curtains. They were called to do that in the sons of Aaron, Itamar, because Eliezer, Itamar, they were responsible for making sure that Gershon will fulfill his duty correctly. Okay, now Nadab and Abiud, which were before Eliezer and Itamar, died because they brought strange fire to Elohim. Okay, so this first couple of chapters, we'll have to learn how the structure is and understand that the biggest important part about this is saying that the tribes are going to march first, right? So in the way that the camp will work is that Yehuda will go first. They station in the east, and then we have in the southeast we have Ishtar and Zebulun, and then second to that it will be Reuben that will move. Okay, Reuben will move, then Ephraim, and then Dan will move. And so on the southwest we have Simeon and Gad. On the northwest we have Manasseh and Benjamin, and on the northeast we have Naphtali and Asher. But the leaders that will lead this march was Judah, Reuben, Ephraim, and Dan. And so this was the order that the camp will march, and then the Levites will be in the middle of this march, and they will being protected by the camp, because the tribes will protect the Levitical priesthood, which the Levitical priesthood will protect the tabernacle, because the tabernacle and the Levitical priesthood basically represented Elohim. The Levitical priesthood is the only priesthood in the Bible that is established on earth to service. Okay, understand that. Okay, that is very, very important. There's no such thing as the priesthood of Melchizedek. There's only one that has fulfilled that function, and that is Yeshua. Okay, so here we also see the laws of purification, or how God says that he doesn't want any contamination in the camp. And then we see that here, we see the Nazarite vow, we see the Aaronic blessing. All right, and these are topics that we're not going to get into today, but today we will focus on how Elohim establishes the order of his camp. Because remember, before you understand anything else, you have to understand God's order. We have to understand what he wants and how he wants things to be done. That is one of the most important aspects of our faith, of the most important aspects of the Bible. Okay, so let's keep reading. And it says, verse 29, As for the sons of Merari, you shall number them by their families, by their father's household, for 30 years and upward, even to 50 years old. You shall number them, everyone who enters the service to do the work of the tent of meeting. Now this is the duty of their loads for all their services in the tent of meeting, the boards of the tabernacle, its bars and its pillars and its sockets. So, the Merari, they were in charge of the boards, the bars, the pillars, and the sockets. Okay, and the pillars around the court, their sockets and their pegs, and the cord with all their equipment and with all their service. And you shall assign each man by name the items he is to carry. This is the service of the family of the sons of Merari according to all their service in the tent of meeting, under the direction of Itamar, the son of Aaron the priest. So again, Aaron's sons are the ones making sure that the Gershonites and the Kehathites and the Merari tribes are doing the correct thing when it came to fulfilling their duty as priesthood in their functions. Now, there is interesting that the priests or here the Levites are doing avodah service compared to eventually what it comes after post-exilic biblical time, which avodah becomes the service of the temple. Right here, the Kehathites, the Gershonites, and the Merarites are fulfilling an avodah, a service to God, by them dismantling and mantling the sacred precinct in where God is going to abide and where his presence is leading the camp. Okay, so what have we understood already? One, the Levitical priesthood is the chosen priesthood on earth. Two, the priests and the Levites have different functions. One, there's the high priest, the priests, and the Levites. Okay, the high priest is the leader, which is Aaron. Then come his sons. Then come the Levites. Each of them have a function, but each of them represents the tabernacle. They had a function in the camp. They did not usurp. They did not step about their boundaries. As of right now, we understand God's order and structure. Now, chapter 5 gets into something very interesting, and this is what we're going to close off with. Okay, it says the following: And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Command the sons of Israel that they send away from the camp every leper, and everyone having a discharge, and everyone who is unclean because of a dead person. You shall send away both male and female. You shall send them outside the camp, so that they will not defile their camp where I dwell in their midst. Sons of Israel did so, and sent outside the camp, just as the Lord had spoken to Moses. Thus the sons of Israel did. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, when a man or a woman commits any of the sins of mankind, acting unfaithfully against the Lord, that person is guilty. Now, elohim is going to start establishing what clean and unclean things can be in the camp. Because remember, the camp is about life, not about death. So anything that was unclean had to be removed from the camp, because Elohim, God, was moving through the camp. That was his expectation. That's what God wanted to do amongst his people. Okay, so the book of Leviticus, the book of Exodus, and the book of Numbers set us up for what we're seeing right now. These opening verses are describing the camp being established, everybody understanding their role and their function, and now we're going to start seeing how God is going to deal with certain things that he does not condone on his camp. Order. Okay, order is very important and is a key aspect of what God is trying to establish here. And I'm going to repeat it a lot. I'm very sorry, but order, organization. There's a lot of commandments that are going to be given, like right now, the unclean, the leper, right? The unfaithful wife or a jealousy, and then there is a ritual or a steps that are taken that is called a sodah. And so we're going to talk about that this year, but these are steps that Elohim is going to start establishing for the people. But for this week's Torah portion, what I want you to take from this is the following: the tribes had an order and a synchronization in how they were going to move by God's command. The Levitical priesthood, as they represented God, Elohim, they represented the tent of meeting, the house of God. They had to move on God's command and on God's order. Okay, now biggest revelation that I have for you guys today is we have to follow God's commandments. Torah portion Naso means to count or to elevate. So we're called to elevate ourselves. Israel's camp was called to elevate itself. The Levitical priesthood was called to elevate itself. So let's do our best to elevate ourselves. Now, Jesus called us to elevate ourselves. And he said the following about how we elevate ourselves. So John 12, verse 20-36 says the following: Now there were some Greeks among those who were going up to worship at the feast. These then came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida of Galilee, and began to ask him, saying, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. Philip came and told Andrew. Philip came and told Jesus. And Jesus answered them, saying, The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to the life eternal. If anyone serves me, he must follow me. And where I am, there my servant will be also. Anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. So now my soul has become troubled in what I shall say. Father, save me from this hour. But for this purpose I have come to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came out of heaven. I have both glorified it, and I will glorify it again. So the crowd of the people who stood by and heard it were saying that it had thunder, and others were saying an angel has spoken to him. But Yeshua answered and said, this is the voice. This voice has not come for my sake, but for your sakes. Now, judgment is upon this world. Now the ruler of this world will be casted out. And I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all men to myself. But he was saying this to indicate the kind of death by which he was going to die. The crowd then answered him, we have heard of the law that the Messiah is to remain forever. And how can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is the Son of Man? So Yeshua said to them, for a little while longer the light is among you. Walk while you have the light, so that darkness will not overtake you. He who walks in the darkness does not know where he goes. While you have the light, believe in the light, so that you may become sons of light. So Yeshua here is basically letting us know that his Father is the one that glorifies him. They in that moment couldn't understand, because in their minds they had a assumption of what things were going to be like. They did not pay attention to the pattern that God had established. They did not understand that Elohim had a message. After a certain time, they had kind of blocked out that there was a mission above what they had envisioned. And we can get carried away with that, with our own purpose or our own mission or our own vision of what God wants to do. Yeshua here is telling us that there is a light. He was a light. But why was he a light? Yeshua was a light because he obeyed his Father and did his Father's will. And they couldn't understand that because they were too busy trying to fulfill their will. Torah portion Naso, even though it says count, it also says elevate. We understand that the people of Israel, to this point in the book of Bamidbar, in Exodus and Leviticus, they have said, we will do as the Father, or we will do as God says. These Torah portions establish that the people of Israel did as they were commanded. Yeshua did as he was commanded, and he was light. Israel was doing what they were supposed to be doing as they were commanded, and they were being light because they were being different. So how do you elevate yourself? You elevate yourself by obeying God's command, and with an open heart and an open mind, being willing to obey God's commands. I hope that I was able to explain that to the best of my abilities. So this week's Torah portion, Naso, read it. It's packed with a lot of information we didn't get to at all, but I hope that you guys take some time to read up chapter 4:21 through 7:89. And so Judges 13:2-25, and John, as we read, 12:20-36. I hope you guys have a great week. Shavua Tov and Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.